see if this is working because we should be in a long video that to y'all won't know it, but I kept putting off and putting off making. So let me see if it's working first. To y'all won't know it, but I do believe that it is working. And I do believe that we are here for another retro review. This time around, we're not going that far back in time. We're only going to 2022, and we are going to discuss WWE WrestleMania 38, Night 1, WrestleMania Saturday, as they presented it. I'm probably going to label it as Night 1. I did say I got a bit of a late start in filming the video, but I got a head start in watching the show because I started watching the show Saturday night. Did not finish it until Monday. We have a lot to go over and dwell into. Like I said, it is a show that is not from that long ago, but there's a lot that has happened since then that needs to be discussed. My dog is walking out of the room. He doesn't really care about any of this, or he might watch the video later. I would appreciate that. So before we get into the review, there's a lot of different things that we can dwell into, so hopefully I hit all the spots that I need to. Thing one, this one's the most important to me, and hopefully to y'all. I planned on reviewing Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor 2022, which happened this WrestleMania weekend. And almost every WrestleMania weekend, there's a Supercard of Honor show. Some weekends that is not the case. And one of those weekends for WrestleMania that a Supercard of Honor did not take place in is going to be this year. And Supercard of Honor is scheduled for May 2nd, I believe. So a bit of a spoiler alert, even though I've kind of alluded to it already. I will be reviewing and talking about Supercard of Honor 2022 the week of Supercard of Honor 2025. So that week's retro review will be Supercard of Honor 2022. And I'm really looking forward to that review. Next, I did not initially plan on talking about WrestleMania 38 Night 2 Sunday, because Saturday completely blows that show out of the water. Saturday carries very, very hard. So maybe I'm going to rewatch WrestleMania 38 Sunday and be more impressed by it. So that would be better for the retro review. But I can very much say that this is going to be the first time I'm going into a review in this series and know that something is bad. I remember a couple of things from the show, and the things that I mainly remember were not pleasant. Thing 3, and this one, again, doesn't even really matter too much. But the other weird thing about WrestleMania Sunday is a lot of the people are not in this video game. They're not in WWE 2K24, and I personally don't want to have to go to the community creations to download them, to be fair. A lot of them are not worthy of being downloaded. So if I'm using WrestleMania Saturday wrestlers, and while I'm talking about WrestleMania Sunday matches next week, that'll be an issue we deal with next week. And I also don't think it is a problem in the grand scheme of things. And one more thing that needs to be discussed is the night before WrestleMania SmackDown took place. I almost called it WrestleMania Friday, which imagine a 3-day WrestleMania. I don't think that's too impossible, but I also don't think that people have the money to afford 3 straight days of WrestleMania. But I might be wrong with that as well. Regardless, I'm going to talk about some things that happened on WrestleMania SmackDown. I did not watch this show back. The most important thing to happen was the annual Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. This time around, it was won by Madcap Moss, who does appear on this show and joins the lineage. And I'm going to try to do this from memory. Cesaro, Big Show, Baron Corbin, Mojo Raleigh, Mojo, Broken, Nope, Woken, Matt Hardy, Braun Strowman, And main event, Jey Uso, who won it at WrestleMania, the WrestleMania SmackDown of the previous year. So I did all that from memory. Needless to say, this is a insane list of winners. And I remember that going on the years after were won by Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed. Now, one other thing, and this one does bother me. This one bothers me. The United States and Intercontinental Championships were not defended at these WrestleManias. Instead, the United States champion was in this damn Battle Royal and did not win it. He also competes in a six-man tag in the main event and loses. And the Intercontinental title was on the line as the then champion Ricochet defeated Angel and Humberto, who were tag team partners. So the fact that they're challenging for a singles title is a bit odd. But it's also odd that for like the longest time, the Intercontinental and United States Championships, it was very difficult for them to get a spot at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 21. Oh my God. Why did I do this to myself? WrestleMania 21, neither were defended. WrestleMania 22, the Intercontinental title was not defended. WrestleMania 23, the Intercontinental title was not defended. So the U.S. title's actually got a good streak because at 22, there was a match. 23, there was a match. I'm not going to talk about it. 24, both champions were in the Money in the Bank ladder match. And then at 25, who the hell would have been the U.S. champion at WrestleMania 25? Oh, boy. I believe it was either MVP or Shelton Benjamin. I think it was MVP, which would makes it even more complicated because he is the champion at 24 as well. So, small recap. Madcap Moss wins the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and Ricochet defended his Intercontinental title against Angel and Humberto. I like to give these little like tidbits about things that happened WrestleMania weekend, but this is Supercard of Honor was the big outside WrestleMania thing that happened, and I'll be discussing it down the line. And B, just not a lot of stuff happened. Now, one other thing that did happen was the Hall of Fame, with that year's inductees being via the Warrior Award, Shad Gaspard, very deserved. The Steiner brothers, Vader, Queen Sharmell, and The Undertaker, who looked very weird because he kind of looked like he was doing a TED Talk because he had the wireless microphone that I believe that Lizzie McGuire had in the Lizzie McGuire movie, which it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. But I'm also going to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen it in full, but it's a very weird presentation for The Undertaker, but it was much, much deserved. So, enough of me yapping about the non-action. We're almost 10 minutes in, and I haven't talked about anything on this show. So let's get into it. We're here to discuss WrestleMania 38, Night 1, WrestleMania 38, Saturday. We're at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. America the Beautiful is sung by Brantley Gilbert, and we also have an intro done by Mark Wahlberg as our opening contest for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. The Usos versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. Now, what is crazy about this is I need to go ahead and spectate this match because the action's going on. That. B, we live in a world right now where Jey Uso is going into WrestleMania and challenging for a world championship and has a great chance in winning it. Time will tell with that. But in the build to this match and the way that Nakamura and Boogs earned their title shot is Rick Boogs defeated Jey Uso in a singles match. Now, to be fair, Jey Uso was going into the match thinking that Boogs was injured and he had tape around his knee, but it was just a sham and he was not injured. And so he tricked Jey Uso and was able to win. Now, it's also, if you realize what I just said, kind of foreshadowed the ending of this match, but let's talk about what happened prior to all that. Nakamura starts the match off with Jimmy, and he immediately kicks him to start the match off. There's also Nakamura and Boogs were sponsored by Mike's Hard Lemonade, which I do not know if that's an alcoholic beverage, but I think that it is. So I don't advise that because I've never drunk alcohol. Don't need to really spending too much time revealing stuff about myself. But you get the point. But what was weird about it is that Boogs and Nakamura were in black and yellow uniforms. So maybe they were just Steeler fans. The match changes once Boogs and Jey Uso tag in, including a delayed vertical suplex by Boogs. Boogs tries to slam both Usos at once, which starts with him holding up Jay, and then Jimmy jumps at him, and he's holding both of them up. I was like, oh, this is impressive. But then his knee gives out, and he is injured, and the match kind of quickly fades away at this point. Nakamura does attempt a Kinshasa, but it's caught with a super kick and a frog splash for a 2 count. Another super kick is needed, and a 1D by the Usos, and the Usos pick up the victory in our opening contest and retain their SmackDown Tag Team Championships. They do not lose for another year. I don't know how much Boo's competing in the later parts of the match would have changed it up. It is definitely the worst time to get an injury, and you don't want to see injuries happen in general. So that kind of is the main thing to take away from the match in the grand scheme of things. But it's also kind of pointing out that the tag division was not the greatest at this time period. But the Usos kick off this WrestleMania weekend. The Bloodline, will they reign supreme? Tune into the next retro review. Now, we have a one-on-one encounter. Happy Corbin versus Drew McIntyre. People are very salty that Drew McIntyre is going into another singles encounter this year at Mania, but I'm all right with the match that is scheduled to take place with him and Damian Priest. But going back to 2022, he was facing Happy Corbin, because at the day one premium live event, Corbin injured Drew and stole Drew's sword, which is named Angela after his mother. And Drew returned at the Rumble at the end of the month, and has ever since then has been wanted to get revenge on Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. And so this one-on-one encounter is a great chance to do so. Drew starts the match off very aggressive, but is slowed down once he is thrown into the ring post on the outside. Madcap Moss, at one point, jumps on the apron and is like pointing at Drew, like laughing at him, and it distracts Happy Corbin. And this leads to Drew hitting a spinebuster. Drew then attempts a Future Shock DDT, but is reversed into a Corbin Deep 6. Drew then dives onto both men on the outside, and then back of the ring attempts to hit a Claymore, but Corbin hits the End of Days, where Drew becomes the first man to kick out of the End of Days. Now I'm going to give a quick sidebar. I remember Corbin doing an interview, and a lot of times with interviews and just things that in the media with wrestlers, they get clipped. So I'm not going to say I watched the full interview. But I remember the clip going around talking of Corbin, talking about how no one has ever kicked out of the End of Days. And I knew the first chance that they got, they're going to have somebody kick out of the End of Days. And it just so happened that that chance was at WrestleMania, so it kind of checks out. It makes for a quote-unquote WrestleMania moment. But I would have kept that to myself. But it was all streaks in wrestling come to an end. How could I word this? All the good streaks in wrestling come to an end. Samoa Joe and TNA, Undertaker's WrestleMania undefeated streak. Those are the main two Goldberg streak. Those are the main that come to mind. McIntyre lands a Future Shock DDT and a Claymore and picks up the victory and retrieves his sword named Angela, in which Madcap Moss gets on the apron and then has to jump off when McIntyre swings the sword at the ropes, and the first two ropes break and the ring kind of explode. I'm definitely imagining in my mind that it exploded. It definitely did make a loud noise that sounded like an explosion. So, like I said, with the Damian Priest match that's scheduled to go on this year, this match kind of should give you optimism, because this was a good match, and I feel that it should be a lot similar, and I don't think it was definitely not a bad match. I enjoyed it. Now, we had something that I did not enjoy that much. A tag team encounter with the Mysterios, Ray and Dominic, versus The Miz and Logan Paul. And I have definitely said it several times on my channel, but I am not a big Logan Paul fan. And while this was not his first time being involved with the WWE, he ruined a freaking Sami Zayn Kevin Owens WrestleMania match. Like, did they really feel the need for that? This would be his first matchup, and I did say to myself at the time, I don't care about this match. I, in most cases, do not. Here's what sucks about it. I try to boycott and not watch the Logan Paul matches, but they've started putting him in so many multi-man matches. He was in the last two Elimination Chambers. He's been in a Money in the Bank. He's been in the Royal Rumbles. This match, like, he's been in a lot of freaking multi-man matches, so it kind of screws me over seeing several other competitors freaking compete. But I definitely thought, and here's the good thing. My retro review rule is I'm trying to review stuff pre-2023, and I just told y'all that this was his first matchup to take place, so I'm kind of in an okay spot, because by my rule, I shouldn't have to discuss any more of his matches. So let's get through this one. The Miz and Logan Paul versus Ray and Dominic Mysterio. Ray and The Miz start the match off where Ray is immediately trapped in his opponent's corner. Dominic comes in for the save, but is trapped in his opponent's corner after Logan attacks him with the referee's back being turned. Ray is eventually tagged back in with several roll-up attempts. A tornado DDT gets a 2 count. Then this is followed by the Three Amigos. Then Logan Paul hits his own version of the Three Amigos, which when I wrote it down, this jackass hits his own Three Amigos, which, to be fair, this WrestleMania weekend is probably not the best time to make a jackass reference because of a competitor on Sunday night. Followed by a frog splash for a 2 count. Both Mysterios hit a 619 on Logan, but Miz tags himself back in where he pushes Ray out of the way and he pushes Dominic out of the way and hits a skull crushing finale on Ray for the victory. Then, to make things even better, he would hit one on Logan. Nothing as crazy happened. To be fair, it is just Logan Paul's first match, so there's definitely been better encounters since then, and I'm glad that The Miz hit him with a skull crusher finale, because I knew there's a great reason why I messed with and liked The Miz, and this definitely helped that case. Now, sometimes in these videos and reviews, promo segments happen, and I try to gloss over them, and this was going to be one of those. I felt if nothing that important happens in it, I don't think it's worth, or will progress something happening later on. So there's a lot of times when I'm doing my ROH reviews and there's just, they ask somebody a question and it doesn't progress anything that much, I just gloss over it. And I thought that this promo segment was going to be that, exactly. And then something happened, and I started to laugh at it. But Stephanie McMahon comes out and thanks everyone for attending. Normally, someone has to come out every WrestleMania and thank the fans for coming. I understand it. That's understandable. And she's talking about the importance of the fans attending the events all over, not just WrestleMania, and talks about what the future of WWE looks like. And it is just a segment. It is just a segue to introduce Gable Stevenson. Now, I knew I was going to forget to point this out, but thing one, Stephanie McMahon looked like she was wearing a suit that Seth Rollins owns. There's a blue suit that Seth wears. He's got a white shirt and a black tie. Stephanie McMahon had the same getup on without the tie. That's thing one. Thing two, this is a crazy time to talk about Gable Stevenson because last week, 2 weeks ago, he lost a very close Olympic bout and it had Twitter in an uproar. Almost anything that Gable Stevenson does is an uproar, but nothing ever came of his WWE career. There's nothing good to say about his WWE career. I'm not even going to try to put it over, but it is just, he was supposed to be the future of WWE. And I keep saying, hey, this was just 2022. We're in 2025 right now. He did nothing, and he has not done nothing in the sense of WWE. So, big swing and a miss. That is the absolute best way that I can label that, and it is a bit hilarious in hindsight. Now, the match that is about to be displayed on your screen is the next match that needs to be discussed, and it was a great matchup nonetheless for this Raw Women's Championship. Becky Lynch defended it against Bianca Belair. Now, how's the best? This, you can say this about a lot of freaking time periods in WWE. And a good thing with reviewing this show is it kind of felt like the precursor to the era we're in now. The changes that we saw in the coming months and essentially years. This show kind of set the tone with it, especially with the return of someone that we'll be discussing in a matter of moments. But one of the more, and the reason I mention this here is one of the more recent controversial moments I'm about to talk about. At the previous year's WrestleMania, Bianca Belair main evented and defeated Sasha Banks to become champion. Now, the main thing that sucks about this match is Bianca Belair, Lawrence Taylor, and Sid Vicious. And I probably should have brought this up, but it's better time to now. Lawrence Taylor and Sid Vicious are the only two WrestleMania competitors that their only matches at WrestleMania were in the main event, as Sid competed at WrestleMania 8 and 13, both times being in the main event. Lawrence Taylor only competed at WrestleMania 11 and was in the main event. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because for 1 year, Bianca Belair also joined that club because her first WrestleMania was the WrestleMania main event. Unless you count the pre-show, which some people do, some people don't. For my sake, I didn't count it. Now, here's that damn controversial decision. I'll talk about it. That was a terrible... I started talking about it a little bit too early. But Becky Lynch made her return at SummerSlam 2021. It was scheduled to be Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair in their WrestleMania rematch, and Sasha was unable to compete. And that was one of the big matches of that SummerSlam. The other one, I would say, was going to be John Cena and Roman Reigns, but the match that I just said was legitimately a WrestleMania main event. So it was going to be a big match. So the fact that we were not going to get it, and fans knew something was up, because I remember hearing about Sasha Banks like a couple of days before, like, she's not going to be able to compete at SummerSlam. So what are they going to do? And they had Becky Lynch return and defeat Bianca Belair in a matter of seconds after a manhandle slam, which I've had to write that down several times. I hate that name, but that's what the hell it's called. And just the people, they had been building up Bianca for over a year. She was the champion, and Becky just came in and snatched that championship back from her. Now, what also makes this even more weird, and this one's not as, some people could look at it as controversial. I kind of look at it more so as funny. They had that segment because, like I said, Becky won the SmackDown Women's title. You notice this match for the Raw Women's title. They had to do that segment in which Becky and Charlotte exchanged championships, and it was so damn awkward. So that kind of, it doesn't really mess with the bill, but it's kind of funny in hindsight. But ever since that SummerSlam match, Bianca had to scratch and claw her way to earn another title shot, and she was able to do that with winning the Elimination Chamber, which, she did that this year as well. So, a SummerSlam rematch for the Raw Women's Championship. Becky Lynch defends against Bianca Belair. Both competitors had special entrances for this. And here we go with talking about the matchup. Both attempt their finishers early on with the manhandle slam landing, very similar to a SummerSlam 2021 situation, but this time around, it only gets a 2 count. Becky attempts a top rope moonsault, but Bianca moves out of the way, and then it attempts to apply her own version of the disarmor. I'll switch pages. Bel Air is pushed into the ring steps on the outside, and then back of the ring, Lynch goes for offense that would target the throat of Bel Air because it was injured in the weeks leading up to Mania. Lynch applies a triangle choke with Bel Air powering out of it and sending her to the outside, both of them to the outside, actually. Bel Air delivers a big suplex while on the outside, and in the ring, a standing moonsault that only gets a 2 count. Afterwards, Bel Air slams Lynch on the top rope and follows it up with a 450 splash, getting a very close 2 count. Lynch then finally lands a top rope maneuver, with it being a rolling senton that catches Bel Air right in the eye. The heel of Lynch hits Bianca right in the eye, and you can see it starting to swell up pretty quickly then. Bel Air attempts the KOD, but Lynch grabs the top rope, so Bel Air sends Lynch over the top rope, and on the outside, Lynch slams Bel Air into the ring steps again, with Bel Air getting into the ring at the count of 9. Then Lynn attempts the manhandle slam, but Bel Air grabs the corner, flips over Becky, and hits the KOD, and reclaims her women's championship back. So I talked about that summer. That'd be a great pay-per-view event. The SummerSlam 2021 fiasco, and if you notice, it wasn't even really a match. So they had a great chance of redeeming themselves or doing a lot better here, and I said that they do. I very much enjoyed this matchup, and Bel Air would go on to hold this championship for over a year. So there it is. Now we're getting into a very, very important moment in WWE history. I believe that it was voted. I don't know if it was voted at number 1, but WWE just recently did a list of biggest WrestleMania returns, and this was very high up on the list. And so don't quote me on, but I'm fairly certain it got number 1, which is understandable. But we have Seth freaking Rollins. That will probably be the only time in this video I refer to him as that. Versus the returning American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. I told y'all earlier that this show kind of felt like the prelude to the new era that we are in. And a lot of that is responsible for and by Cody Rhodes. This was his big return to the WWE. His last match in AEW, who would lose his TNT Championship to Sammy Guevara in a very good ladder match. A couple weeks later, we were notified that Cody and Brandy were leaving AEW. And almost immediately, they're like, he's going to WWE. He's going to WWE. In the weeks leading up to WrestleMania, we would get slight references of Cody coming back. A lot of it was dashing Cody Rhodes references, which there is that. But someone that thought their WrestleMania dreams had dashed away was Seth freaking Rollins, which Seth, when he's involved, is always an important figure and does a lot. Whether it was last year and carrying and holding the World Championship for a great majority of the year, having to insert himself into the WrestleMania Night 1 main event because of other fiascos and whatnot. So him not having a WrestleMania match, or one that makes sense and one that could have been jeopardized and questionable, it was understandable that Seth needed a matchup at WrestleMania, but he thought that he was not going to get that chance. Boss man called him into the office and said, all you had to do was ask, and that opponent will be a person of the boss's choosing, which I've already kind of spoiled it, that it was Cody Rhodes, making his WWE return. And another bit of a spoiler alert, the start of the Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins trilogy which, the reason I say spoiler alert, I'm going to be covering the other 2 matches in the trilogy down the line as well. So here we are for Seth versus Cody 1. It takes moments for the dust to settle and the match to start up. The fans are excited for this. Once it does, Cody does an arm drag and follows it up with a cartwheel and Stardust taunt to remind the fans that he was once Stardust, which the last WrestleMania that he competed at prior to this was in the same building and as Stardust. The match picks up with a series of punches and a suplex to the outside. Rollins then delivers a drop kick to Cody, following up with a crossbody attempt. Seth starts to taunt Cody and I quote, says, "Welcome to the big leagues, bitch." Cody, end quote. Cody doesn't settle for this, and he hits a dive to the outside. Back in the ring, he hits a moonsault for a 2 count. Back on the outside they go, where Seth lands a devastating pair of power bombs, and both the crossroads and the curb stomps are attempted with the crossroads being landed and only getting a 2 count. A reverse suplex and a reverse DDT by Seth gets a 2 count, and then a power bomb and top rope Cody Cutter gets a 2 count. Seth lands a pedigree, which is kind of a reference for both men, but Seth lands the pedigree with it only getting a 2 count, while Cody hits 2 crossroads, a pair of Dusty Rhodes style punches, and 1 more crossroads to win his first matchup back in the WWE. And like I said, their story is long from being over because they have 2 more matches. One was a very important match at Hell in the Cell, which, like I said, we'll get to it down the line. But overall, this was a massive moment in WrestleMania history, and one that is still being felt and a big deal to this day. So it's nice to relive it. The attendance is announced for this night, 77,899, which is down a lot from their last time that they were in this stadium. Granted, this is a 2-night show, so I'm intrigued to see what the night 2... In my eyes, if I was there to be, I would want the damn attendance to stay the same or go up. I would be fine with it going up. I'm definitely intrigued to see what the night 2 attendance is whenever I discuss it next week. But now, we have the other women's title match. This one being for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey. Thing 1. In the lead to this event, and they had a very long promo package that was very well done, and it was essentially highlighting what both women have done in their sporting careers. Mainly Charlotte in WWE and Ronda in the UFC and outside the UFC, but obviously talked a little bit about her WWE stuff. But I did take away, and this is in 2022, Charlotte was already a 13-time world champion, which her father, Ric Flair, is only a 16-time world champion. And I know for certain, at some point, she will tie Ric Flair. I'm fairly certain of that. And even looking at it now, she wins the title back again. So at this moment, if my calculations are correct, she's already a 14-time champion. Which makes this even more insane, and I know this is very relevant now because John Cena is looking to break that record at this year's WrestleMania. And he didn't win his first title until 2005. So 20 years. Charlotte didn't win her first title until 2014. If you even count the NXT title in this situation, which I imagine that they do, and she's a 2-time NXT Women's Champion. Regardless, it took Charlotte like half the time to do what Cena's been doing for double the amount of time. So it is a bit insane. But we have Charlotte versus Ronda, who are very polarizing figures, to say the least. So what did they do in this matchup? Now, thing 1, what has to be noted, is that... Let me try to fix this. Ronda won the 2022 Women's Royal Rumble match, which people are not happy about that. I think people were a little bit okay with it. I'm lying. I'm lying in that sense. But people were more mad about the main event Royal Rumble match that night. But Ronda returned and won the Royal Rumble, and Charlotte was already the champion. I don't know why we did not get Ronda and Becky ever, especially because it was teased at WrestleMania 35, and it ended up being the triple threat. It was teased here because Ronda had to choose her WrestleMania opponent and could have chose Becky, but ended up going with Charlotte. In the grand scheme of things, and looking at it, I understand that Becky and Ronda didn't happen here because they were building up the Bianca and Becky story, so that made sense. But you could have got two dream matches if you went the opposite route, because we could have got Bianca and Charlotte, which at WrestleMania, at a premium live event stage, does not happen. I think that it happened on a Raw once. It was a bullshit finish because it was back not that long ago. But we could have got that match. We could have got the Becky and Ronda match. But as of right now, 3 years later, we ain't got either. And the Ronda Becky match, I don't think we'll ever get. But if this was how many years ago now? 6, 7 years ago, people would care about that match a lot more. But all in all, I'm here to talk about the SmackDown Women's title match between Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. An immediate tie-up that leads to the outside apron where Ronda is slammed on it. Then we get some judo throws, followed by a Charlotte spear. Then Charlotte hits a moonsault for a 2 count. Ronda gets trapped in the corner where she flips off the turnbuckle to hit the Piper's Pit, which is a spinning Samoan drop. Ronda attempts several arm bars several times and instead settles for an ankle lock several times because in the build to this, which again, it kind of felt a bit funny, but Charlotte called Ronda a run-trick pony because she only won by arm bars, and Ronda's like, you know what, I'm going to change it up, and added ankle locks into her repertoire, so that explains why that change-up was made. Charlotte applies the figure 8, but the camera misses most of it being applied, and it doesn't really start to focus until the figure 8 is broken up, and Ronda rolls to the outside of the ring. The ref counts to 3 after Charlotte is hit with the Piper's Pit back in the ring, but Flair's foot is on the rope, so the match is not over because the referee saw that Charlotte's foot was on the rope, didn't even ring the bell, but Charlotte pushes the referee out of the way and hits the natural selection for a 2 count, and then Charlotte taps out, but the referee is down, so the ref does not see it, and Charlotte wins this matchup with a big boot. I think the matchup was not that bad. The finish of it, I thought, was terrible. I didn't like the bullshit ending, and winning a match off a big boot is a bit insane after doing all your other moves earlier in the match. I will say that these two do rematch at WrestleMania Backlash in what is a better matchup, so I at least have that to look forward to. But for WrestleMania, this is kind of bullcrap. I'm going to take a water break because I've been talking for like 40 freaking straight minutes. And we got our big main event matchup discussed, the one that you're seeing right now on your screen as well. But 100%. All right, I'm lying to you. I can't say 100%. I will say that a good reason that I chose to review this show is because I'm trying to. 2022 is a very chaotic year in the world of wrestling. I think that everybody knows that by now. But I didn't start making videos until 2023. So I'm kind of trying to backtrack a little bit. And I'm going to go back, talk about 2022. 2021, there's a lot of stuff to talk about like towards the end of the year, but like beginning of the year, not really. 2020, kind of same thing lingers. But 2022 was a very chaotic year in wrestling. So I'm trying to relive it a little bit. But I wanted to discuss the Cody and Seth trilogy, which in doing so, I'd have to discuss this because this is where the first matchup took place. Now, a dream matchup takes place here in this WrestleMania main event, and one that you never really could have figured taking place, but it does. And that matchup is between Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin. These are two of my all-time favorites. They are in my fave five. And so the fact that they got to compete at WrestleMania and I actually got to see it happen on screen. I wasn't live when it happened. I was watching it on screen like, damn, this is really happening. I even made an Instagram post about it because it was that cool. It is a cool moment. Let's break it down and what happened with it. For 19 years, Stone Cold had to live with his defeat in his last matchup against The Rock at WrestleMania 19. And Kevin Owens was kind of in that similar situation as Seth Rollins, where he did not think he was going to be on the WrestleMania card. And he had an idea. And he did not even like Texas. So I don't like, I understand missing WrestleMania. You know, you don't really want to miss WrestleMania, especially miss out on that WrestleMania payday. But, you know, kind of the way he was bashing Texas, it kind of seemed like it would have benefited him to not compete, but then we wouldn't have this crazy shit that we're about to discuss happen. But he insults Texas and calls out a man that is very, very synonymous with Texas and Stone Cold Steve Austin to appear on the Kevin Owens show to close out WrestleMania Saturday. And instead of getting the Kevin Owens show, we get a scrap between these two. We can tell we're in for a fight when Stone Cold finally arrives after KO continues to bash Texas, and Stone Cold immediately tears down and beats up the KO show set. And he wants a matchup. He's dressed like he is on your screen, and he is ready for a fight, and that is what we get. Fists are thrown to start the match off with Stone Cold stomping KO out in the corner. This is followed by him enjoying a cold one and then taking it to the outside where Stone Cold is pushed into a ring post. During this time, KO sets up a table that he is eventually pushed into, and then they fight into the crowd, with Stone Cold even getting hit with a suplex that looked painful. More cold ones are enjoyed and punches are thrown once near the announce table. Then KO is trying to escape this beatdown near the announce table by getting on Stone Cold's ATV, but he does not know how to start it up. And so Stone Cold has to assist him with that. But in doing so, he drives off with KO and ensures that the ass whooping continues. And this time around, it happens on the top of the stage and even down the stage. Once back of the ring, KO hits a stunner, but it only gets a 2 count. Then he tries to do further damage with a steel chair, but Stone Cold moves out of the way, and he ends up hitting himself and takes one last Stone Cold stunner, and Stone Cold picks up the victory. And in a very cool moment in WWE history, lots of cold ones are then brought into the ring. Stone Cold even brings on his brother at one point, celebrates with him. One more stunner is needed to hit on KO, and then the sheriffs exit him out of Texas. That way he doesn't have to deal with it anymore. And we close out WrestleMania 38, Night 1. Now, it's definitely a weird perspective because I have another half to review next week. And when you're talking about WrestleManias now, I don't know if you're supposed to break up Night 1 and Night 2. But I already gave y'all the spoiler. Night 1's definitely better than Night 2. There's definitely ways that you could fix both nights, which I'll leave and talk about for the next retro review. But seeing Cody Rhodes return, and what was really the first AEW talent to leave the company and come to WWE, that was also special and somewhat historic, and I did say that with quotations. Seeing Stone Cold compete and not be washed and put up a great performance that was so good that every damn year now we have to, is Stone Cold going to come back for one more match? We're back in that territory again because we know that what we saw the last time. There is that. I enjoyed the Raw Women's title match. The SmackDown Tag Team title and SmackDown Women's title matches were okay for what they were, but had very bad... Alright, the Women's title match had a very bad finish. The Tag Team title match was one of circumstances. McIntyre and Corbin, like I said, I was okay with. So there was that. Um, so all in all, I do recommend WrestleMania 38 Night 1 over Night 2. That is the easiest way I could put it. So what makes Night 2 so bad and head scratching and questionable? Tune into the Retro Review series next week. I'm extremely tired right now because I put off filming this video until very late. And what even makes it crazier is I got a head start on this because I started watching this on Saturday. And I'm not filming this until Wednesday, which I might already say that at the beginning of the video, but I'm so tired that I don't even remember. So it's time for me to end the video. I do appreciate y'all for watching this. We're still on the road to WrestleMania and have one more that we need to discuss. So hopefully I'll see y'all then. I appreciate y'all, and I'm out. Thank you. Goodbye.